I'm Maurice McDavid, host of Black, Brown, and Bilingue, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience podcast. I'm your host, Chris Dutchko. Ninth grade can be challenging. Let's experience it together. And we're so glad to have you back for another full-length episode today. Today, we're revisiting a previous EHS graduate who is doing amazing things in our local community. So today we are talking with Ashley Coleman, who is a 2003 graduate of Emmaus High School. She was recently named the executive director of the Bradbury-Sullivan LGBT Community Center here in Allentown. So she is talking with us today about her journey from Emmaus High School and working towards that position. And she has a great backstory to be able to tell of her time here at Emmaus High School, what it was like for her during that time in the early 2000s, dealing with lots of things that students are dealing with here today, even at Emmaus High School. So, issues of sexuality, of race, of gender. And she talks about all those different things relating her experiences here at Emmaus High School, where she was a trailblazer for lots of different organizations that are still present here today. So Ashley shares great stories and talks about advocacy and dealing with criticism and lots of things that are still applicable even today for our high school students. So we're excited to have her on for the full-length episode today. We also want to highlight some of the other things going on here at Emmaus during the month of April. It is career college month here at the high school. So you'll see teachers wearing college themed shirts on most of the days. And on the Ninth Grade Experience TikTok, we're going to do a feature maybe once or twice a week of college visits, we're calling them. So I've been around the country and taken pictures at lots of different universities. So we're going to put those up. So take a look for those and all the good content we put up on the Ninth Grade Experience TikTok at Ninth Grade Experience. And if you like this episode, make sure you tell somebody about it, share it with a friend, share it with somebody. And if you want to go back and view previous episodes, everything is located at ninthgradeexperience.com. That's where all of our audio and video is. You can look on YouTube at Ninth Grade Experience, or you can also go to any podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those, and look up the episodes as well too. So we're excited to be sharing this full episode with you here, featuring 2003 Emmaus graduate, Ashley Coleman. Welcome everybody to this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience. Today we're joined by a proud EHS alumni, graduated in 2003 and is doing great things in our local community, and was just named the executive director of the Bradbury-Sullivan LGBT Community Center. And I'm excited to have Ashley Coleman today with us on the podcast. So Ashley, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And joining her is the communications director, Braden Hudek. So he'll be here. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see a third box and a mystery person up in the corner. So that's him. He may chime in from time to time. I don't think he went to Emmaus High School, did you?
I did not go to Emmaus High School, but I was a student born and raised here in the Lehigh Valley.
All right. So you can contribute some Lehigh Valley stuff. You didn't go to the school down the road from Emmaus, did you?
I went to Saucon Valley High School.
Okay, so that's okay. If you would have said Parkland, then we might have had some issues. But since you're from Saucon, you can stay on the podcast, so that's good. So, Ashley, we're excited to have you on today. You were highlighted on our district website, and you got a really amazing honor being named the executive director of the Bradbury-Sullivan Community Center in it was January, and you were up on our website in February. So we tried to set something up for Career Month, but life gets in the way. You were a little busy, getting into your new job and holding a big gala fundraising event. So we're happy to have you on here in April, and we'll be able to touch on some career stuff as well. But like all guests of the podcast, whether they're students or adults, we always ask them about their ninth grade experience. And we're happy that you have a ninth grade experience here at Emmaus High School that hopefully you can tell us a little bit about. Now, I always tell the guests, you don't have to tell your age, but I kind of already outed you a little bit by saying that you graduated in 2003. So in the 1999-2000 school year, you were a freshman here at Emmaus High School. So what can you tell us about that time here at Emmaus?
Mm. Well, number one, I'll say we each earn every single one of our years. So I'm proudly 38 years old and look forward to aging gracefully. But ninth grade at EHS. So one thing I will always say is that Emmaus is a wonderful place to come from. The education was really incredible. We had a planetarium, which was really dope. I think that was one of my favorite things was astronomy class. Like I took that probably 11th grade. But freshman year was unique because it was actually the year that Columbine happened. So there was a lot of shifting that was happening during that time period, safety, especially around safety for the students. So many of our class trips were canceled. We were going through drills for the very first time that we had never experienced before. And it was a major culture shift within the high school, but it also meant that we got closer to each other as students. So I was in the plays, I was in the chorus, I was very active in music at EHS. And so it was really this solidarity that happened in that year and pushing forward. So I think it was something really unique that happened in that year. And then of course, shortly after, my 10th grade year was 9/11. So it was a lot of major life happening while trying to figure out how to be a teenager. But I think it really did create this beautiful camaraderie between the students.
And I graduated high school in 99. So I do remember that as well too, kind of that time period and the heightened and obviously where we're at today with things going on in schools, which is a whole nother conversation for another podcast, but we're still doing the drills. We also still have the planetarium. So just to let you know that it's still there. They still bring in students from the elementary schools to kind of come in. I don't know if you were in the East Penn School District for your whole time, but they still bring in the students, in second and fifth grade to kind of to tour and do those kinds of things as well. So again, yeah, and we had actually done an episode last year about the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and some people that were here at that time talked about that camaraderie and those kinds of things coming together at the high school as well as that time.
Yeah.
What I often like to find out from people too is like, it seems like ninth grade is a year where sometimes people have a story of something that led them to where they currently are in their life or their career. We've had people come on and tell us about, incidents that led them to be like a school counselor because they were in a situation that kind of led them to, have different compassion for people or people that were teachers. Was there something in your ninth grade year that you can remember that had kind of like led you to where you are today? Like you've definitely had a unique path since leaving Emmaus High School. And we'll get into a little bit of like all the different places you've been, which is like literally all over the United States. But was there something in that ninth grade year that led you to kind of where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. So Miss Cortez was my music teacher, and she was one of the most supportive humans I've ever met in my life. And my best friend at the time was going through an eating disorder. And I remember being really distraught and not knowing how to keep my studies together while supporting my best friend and in dealing with, being a ninth grader. What are you, 14, turning 15 that year? So a lot of stress, just stress at home, stress at school, and then trying to support my best friend. And I remember her saying to me, sometimes in life, it is important that you learn to be a good student. And sometimes it's important that you learn how to be a good person. And right now, you need to learn how to be a good person. And I want you to give yourself a break and don't worry about the test as much and go visit your friend at the hospital. Don't worry about, making it to chorus practice after school. You need to learn how to be a good person right now. And it's something I carried my entire life. I actually became a teacher. I taught African-American history in North Philadelphia for a little while because I had really incredible supportive teachers. And I wanted to teach kids how to be good people, as well as how to be good students and to get a good education. So that was really, really impactful for me. And I think once you're an educator, you are always an educator. And so even in my position now, I'm an educator, just in a different way. And I think I teach people how to be good people. And that's the core of really all the work that I do.
And it's interesting you say that. So today I was kind of going around the building looking for people that were here when you were still here. Miss Cortez was actually somebody that just retired, if it was not last year, the year before. So she was not somebody that was still here. So it's interesting you kind of have that memory, of helping out. And it's funny that like here we are in 2023 and we're still focusing on those same things, like, the mental health pieces of students, trying to help, with all different things, obviously eating disorders have not gone away either. So like, there's lots of different things that people are dealing with that are still applicable to what you're talking about now, 24 years later, I guess, 23, 24 years later. So, as we go through, I was reading some articles that I had found about you, like from previous, and they talked about like how you were an advocate for yourself at Emmaus High School. One of the articles said that it was like in middle school where you kind of first started that advocacy. So maybe not in your freshman year, but like during your time in high school, what did that like look like for you, kind of becoming the person that you are, and also like having to, if you take a look at the Emmaus yearbook, which I did today, looking back at the 2003 yearbook, there were not a lot of people that looked like you. And I think that's being very fair. So here you are, you're a freshman, you're advocating for yourself and all these different things. So what was that like in that time frame to be an advocate here at Emmaus High School?
So you're absolutely right. I was one of few Black kids at my school at Emmaus. I was also quite possibly the only openly gay kid at Emmaus High School during that time period. And I lived a world that I was different. Everywhere I went, I was different. And so I didn't have an option to be quiet. I didn't have an option to sit in the background and not advocate for myself, because people were going to notice if I was in the room. Good, bad, or indifferent, people were going to notice. And so it was my responsibility, because absolutely no one else was going to advocate for me. And so I really took the time to think about what would it look like for other kids in the school, other teens, to have a supportive space at the high school. And so I started the very first GSA at Emmaus High School. It was called Third Eye Open, which was very 90s. And I believe that was my sophomore year that I started that. And I had to go around to each teacher and try and find, who was going to be the person that was going to essentially like sponsor this GSA. And it took a little while, it took months to find the teacher that was going to help. And of course, that teacher ended up being Miss Cortez, just really, really incredible woman. I also had some really amazing history teachers. And I think that's the other thing that got me down the path in my history teaching later. But yeah, for advocacy, it wasn't an option. I had to say something. There had to be a space for kids that didn't feel like everyone else. The thing that was also really interesting is I didn't experience a lot of bullying. I was kind of friends with everyone. I sat next to the head cheerleader in homeroom, and I went to her birthday parties, and then I would hang out with, like the bandos. And I was in, like I said, I was in the chorus, I was in the theater. And because of that, because I had such a broad spectrum of friends, I think that it helped for people to understand that like queer kids really were just like everyone else, and Black kids were just like white kids. We all like pizza. We all like to go to the football games, right? We all like to do the same stuff. And so advocacy, I started sort of bringing people along with me and creating these groups of folks that would stand up and say like, hey, we need to make a difference here. The only thing I didn't like, and it didn't work, is I really didn't like swimming. So I had swimming second period, and in the wintertime, my hair would get wet and stay wet all day, sitting through class, and I hated it. They didn't care. I still had to take swimming.
Well, and just so you know, swimming is still a requirement here at the high school as well. So you did not advocate strongly enough for that one, but other things you definitely have. It was interesting. I was able to catch up. You may or may not remember her. She remembered you. Christina Whedon. who
Mm.
your friend, she was unsure if you were like really friendly in high school still. She teaches here at the high school now.
Oh,
So
that's
she, when I asked her to kind of, because I went down the row, I tried to talk to every teacher that was here that I could find, and eventually somebody led me to her, and I was talking to her today, and she was recollecting about you, and kind of what she said about you is that you were like uniquely you. You were like the person that stood out, but you were never like, you were the kind of person that people like always noticed, and that you were uniquely yourself. And I think what you just said, you didn't shy away from that. Whereas maybe some students would have like not wanted to be like that out front with everything, being so different at a high school where, it was predominantly white, predominantly, you know, other things as well too. So like, even your classmates from then still kind of remembered you as being uniquely you. And I think that seems to have translated even to your career now, and, kind of still being an advocate for people that need an advocate is what I would say at this point.
well,
Um,
that's so kind.
Yeah, it's really, it was funny. I tried to go back and, some people kind of remembered a little bit. They might have only started right around the time that you were here, but even trying to remember a student from 20 years ago is a challenge for, if we've seen a lot of students. I've been teaching for like 17 years. And if somebody were to ask me a random student from 20 years ago, I probably would blank on it as well too. But to people in your class. I actually when I went through the yearbook today, I was looking through because I wanted to see your picture, and don't worry, we won't share the yearbook picture anywhere. But I did see it. And I was looking to see like where you were at in the yearbook and some other stuff as well too. And it was interesting because I was looking with my student teacher, and we noticed that the same picture was in there twice in two different spots, I think, in the yearbook. And we were like, that's weird. Like they couldn't have picked a different picture of her. So like we were even wondering like, did you even make it into the yearbook? Like, where people even wonder, like, because in the back for the senior part, like your name wasn't in it. And we were like, I'm like, did I get the wrong year? And I was like thinking to myself, I wonder if like something, she didn't get in there for a certain reason. So I don't know. Was there anything, or you just didn't submit it in time or something?
I don't know. I mean, especially my senior year, I was in the yearbook quite a lot. I had two superlatives. I was most unique and best hair.
Oh, I didn't
Uh,
see that part, but
yeah, so I
there you
did,
go.
superlatives. So I guess most unique is not a surprise. Um, um, but I did find it interesting that, yeah, that in that back section, I don't know why I didn't make it in. Couldn't tell you. Racism? I don't know. No.
I didn't suspect it, but it was just kind of interesting because you were in the parts of the other book, and I'm like, wow, that's weird. Like, why she wouldn't have been there. And I was able to find, just Googling your name and the class of 2003, you did win 2 awards at graduation. So you won the administrators and the counselors award, which I think was, it's pretty spot on. And then the other one was service above self, which again, I think they still give that award out here. And, in talking to you and listening to your story, like that seems to fit pretty well, like service above self. And you've kind of carried that mission on for the next, scary to say, 20 years now. But, like looking back on your high school days, like, there was even stories about you like lobbying the school board for stuff. And like, what did that like how did that prepare you for like where you now are? Like, cause you went on a path, like when we talked earlier about like, literally you were all over the country. You were, I think I saw Hawaii in there at one point, lots of different areas. You went to Temple for your undergrad. You wound up in Philly for a while. So as somebody originally from Philly, go Philly. But like your story went a whole bunch of different ways, but that's your time in Emmaus. What would you say, like overall, how did it, I know we kind of already talked about it, but like preparing you to like go into this like world and like life of being an advocate?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that Emmaus, like I said, it is a great place to come from. The preparation was both positive and in many times negative. I experienced a lot of support, but also really for the first time dealing with adults, right? And having to be in spaces that were all adults and just me, teenage me. So I wanted to bring my partner to prom. And at the time, same-sex couples could not go to prom together. And so I had to be the one to go over and over again and say, you know, this isn't right. We have to change these policies. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was pretty unheard of. There were no high schools that were allowing same-sex couples at the time to go to prom as official couples. Of course, friends could go and buy separate tickets and do that sort of thing. But I didn't want to work around. I wanted to go to prom with my partner. And so it was scary. It was terrifying to be in these spaces and up against the grownups who were supposed to know everything, which secret, we don't. It's all a farce. We don't know everything. We're all still learning forever and ever. But what I thought, you know, was that they know best. That's what we are taught. And so to say to a grown-up, like, hey, you got this wrong, was really scary. The other thing I think that was really helpful, my class was the first year that we did senior projects. And in order to graduate, you had to do some sort of senior project. And so all of my friends and my cohorts were doing things like, I had a friend who helped her dad re-landscape his entire lawn. I had a friend who did some like work with one of the theaters here in Allentown. And I decided to start my own nonprofit organization and throw punk shows for charity. So, you know, and I started throwing them at the Americas Hotel in their grand ballroom. And I learned how to get sponsors, and I had to talk to cops about, you know, what size maximum could be there. And I'd be flyering in other people's high schools. I actually went to Saucon High School and I flyered in the parking lot and put flyers on all of the cars. And I had to like learn as I went all of these different foundational pieces that really are truly where I am now. And so going from throwing, you know, 300 person punk shows in the Americas Ballroom and getting A-Treat Soda to sponsor us so I could sell sodas for, you know, 75 cents and bottles of water for $1. And then I would donate all of the money to charity. So Camelot for Children, I gave money to Kids Peace, I gave money to 9/11 organizations that of course, those were really big during that time period. And so it really was the foundation of where I am now. And it was really beautiful. And I learned so much. And I think I'm lucky because last year I was blessed to throw the 50th anniversary of Philadelphia Pride. It had 60,000 attendees. And we did it with not even a fist fight, right? It was beautiful and safe and happy and joyous. And that foundation came from senior projects at Emmaus High School.
And that's, you know, they don't do that anymore. When I first started teaching here at the high school, they were still doing that. And they were, you know, the students had to complete like a thing like that. And a lot of times kids just like shadowed their parents at their job site. But there was the kid every once in a while that did like something like really industrious, like what you're talking about. And to follow up with the first thing you said, I even wrote down because I saw that you talked about the prom in one of the articles. And, you know, if you take a look at like the Emmaus High School pictures from the prom last year that were in like the morning hall, like there are lots of same-sex couples that are in there now. So like to come from where you were fighting for that equality to have, you know, your same-sex partner there to where we're at now, where, you know, it's in the newspaper. Like people don't even bat an eye to it anymore. It's just like normal to see that, especially at the high school setting, where I think it's really interesting, like that, you know, 20 years is not a lot of time, but it's been able to kind of grow and evolve in such a way. So I don't want to hold you up for too much longer, but I have a couple more questions for you. One would be like, so if you were like, I know one of the things that now working at the center and as the executive director of the center, you said that you want to try to get like some sort of consortium or like districts coming together or like somehow having like a common, like you talked about starting the GSA here, but like having maybe, I don't know the vision, but like something that would be like valley-wide or something. Like if you were to talk to a high school student today about advocacy or, you know, the road that you took or like trying to stand up, you know, for so many of the different things that students and even adults are going through right now, you know, related to race or to, you know, orientation or even political stuff. Like, what would your advice be to that student that's in high school right now to kind of have that same grit that you did to kind of do all the things that you did?
Keep trying. You're like you're going to get knocked down. You're going to get some bumps and bruises along the way, and you're going to cry in your bedroom kind of a lot. But that's okay. It's part of the process. And if it is worth it in the end, if your vision, if your cause is truly worth it, keep trying, and other people will come along the way with you. Really look in to the other folks that are part of your mission, lean on one another, but keep trying. It's going to be hard, but keep going.
And, we've, giving that positive message, and I'm sure, even recently, like you and your organization have sustained criticism from, even people at the national level, which I think is wild that people would care, but hey, they care. But like, you have, people that are always going to be against you, whether, no matter what the topic is. And, you've dealt with that criticism since being at Emmaus High School, and now you're, 25 years on and that kind of stuff. Does it ever get any easier to deal with it?
No, it doesn't. And sometimes I still cry in my bedroom, and that's okay. It doesn't get easier. The work is hard. Caring about other people is difficult. Advocating for your rights, for what is right, is hard. And it's painful sometimes. And I still get bumps and bruises. And criticism can be positive and it can be negative. Criticism can make us better. Sometimes it is a gift. Sometimes it's done out of love. And sometimes it is done as a divisionary tactic. And you have to just know that life is long and hard, but it's all worth it.
So if for students or parents or teachers or whoever is watching this, what would you leave them with? Like, where would you direct them to, like, look for resources to, be maybe a part of your organization or other like organizations that maybe are more geared towards teenagers? I know in your previous stops in Philadelphia, you had started a lot of places that were like for youth to come, like maybe they felt like, and you had talked about, not having a place to go, and you tried to create those places. Like, are there places like that in the Lehigh Valley? Like, I don't know, like you're at the forefront here of maybe creating some of these spaces. But if I'm somebody out there that wants to continue on with this change or continue on with the mission that you're trying to get here for everybody, what would you recommend that I do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are expanding our youth programming currently. So this summer, we're going to be having a lot of robust programming. So the 2 days of drop-ins where folks can come and eat good food and watch TV and play video games and play board games and hang out with other queer kids and allies. And then throughout the school year, our after school programming. We also do drop-ins or specific programming, everything from theater, STEM, learn how to code. We've got a computer lounge where you can come and do your homework or, play on social media, whatever feels good. And also, you can find us on all of the social media outlets. It's a great place to figure out what our different events are, what spaces that we're in. And we want to hear directly from youth where we should be doing things, right? Do we need to do some pop-up youth events in Easton? Do we need to be going out to Bethlehem, right? Should we be in Macungie? What are the spaces that we need to be in so we can bring the center to folks? Because I know that travel is a barrier getting to Allentown sometimes. So we want to make it easier for folks to get to us. There's also Project Silk, which is incredible, underneath Valley Youth House. They are a really wonderful resource for youth and teens as well. So I would definitely recommend for folks to check them out. And yeah, stay tuned because there's a lot more in the works.
And if the work that you're going to do is like the work that you've done through the first part of your career, and even here at Emmaus High School, I'm sure we'll be looking out and seeing lots of great things coming. And who knows, maybe there'll even be some connection here with Emmaus High School and whatever you're going to try to do in the future as well. So Ashley, thanks so much for taking the time out today to join us. We really appreciate it. And like I said at the beginning, we're always looking out for Emmaus grads doing good stuff and, really influencing the community and those around us. So we appreciate taking the time. Before I let you go, is there anything else that maybe I didn't ask that you know, you feel that we should kind of communicate to our audience here, or kind of highlight maybe something that I missed?
One, I appreciate you and thank you so much for having me. I think it's a really beautiful podcast that you're doing. I think for youth, the one thing I would say is try something new. Try something you think might be scary and you've never done before. And bring an extra towel for swim class. No.
Yeah, hopefully that now, since you've been here, we've expanded. So the classes are now 80 something minutes long. So they're not the 40-minute, like, you know, race through the days anymore. So now when you go to swimming, you're really in there for a while. So you do get a little bit of extra time to dry off, but the extra towel is important as well, especially on those days when we've had fire drills and stuff where we've had to evacuate when people are in the pool. So I remember those were some good days. They had like jackets down there and stuff. So,
Yeah.
So Ashley, thanks so much for joining us. Braden, you did a great job there as well. So we just wanted to make sure we got you involved there at the end. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us, Chris.